Hi Vinyl community, it's Mike here, and today I'm going to do a video that I haven't done for a little while, and that's to show some new releases. So first up is this one from Slowdive, and it's called Everything is Alive, and it's their fifth studio album, and it's the second one since they reformed in 2017. And in fact, it's the first album they've released for 6 years, so it was very welcome indeed to see something new from them. So this album, in many ways, has been produced in the face of adversity and tragedy. In April 2020, they were due to go into the studio to record this, and of course, COVID came along, and everything had to be cancelled. And they finally got in there sort of in September 2020. And unfortunately, Rachel Goswell's mother and also Simon Scott's father unfortunately died of COVID. So as you can imagine, the band were in a very, very dark place at the time. And Neil Halstead, who wrote all the tracks on this album, said that the music was an escape from the darkness that they were going through at the time. And I think this is a very upbeat album. It's still very recognisably shoegaze, but at first listen, it's a very, very it's a minimalist album. But you soon get to sort of appreciate the various nuances that are going on here, and they're really to be savoured, and the melodies are absolutely brilliant. So, as I say, in my opinion, it's a very upbeat album, and it comes in the covers. There's various sort of different covers that you could get. I mean, quite honestly, I'm not really that bothered which one I have, but this one came with pink vinyl, as you can see, and other editions of the album would have come with different coloured vinyl. So there's 8 tracks on here, and 3 in particular stand out for me. And there's Prayer Remembered, which is absolutely brilliant on side 1. Then Andalusia Plays, which is the closing track on side 1. And then there's Channel to a Cloud, which is on side 2. And I absolutely love this album. Since I got it about 3 weeks ago, I've played it an awful lot, and it really is lovely. So I would suggest if you're into shoegaze, you really like this. Right. Next up is a bit of a special album, and it's from one of my favourite bands, Public Service Broadcasting, and as you can see, it's called This New Noise. And I think it's a real sort of return to form for J. Wildgoose Esquire and Wigglesworth. And it's a live album, and it was recorded on the 30th of August 2022 at the Royal Albert Hall, and it was part of the BBC Proms. Now they were commissioned to do a piece that would celebrate the founding of the BBC 100 years ago. So, in their own sort of inimitable style, you've got all sorts of samples interwoven into the music, and they're accompanied by the BBC Symphony Orchestra, and it's conducted by Jules Buckley, and got this rather nice signed print of the front cover, and it's signed by the boys in the band and also Jules Buckley, although I don't think you can read any of those signatures quite honestly. But so what it is as I say, it's an album. It's an album that's meant to celebrate 100 years of the BBC, and I think it does that admirably. Now, those of you that no public service broadcast. Now, the first album was called Inform, Educate, Entertain, and that was the mantra of John Reith, who was the first Director General of the BBC. So it's quite fitting that they were chosen to make this album, to do this piece. So, all the song titles and samples celebrate and idolise the virtues of the BBC, and all its founding principles. Unfortunately, I think the BBC has really strayed away from that in recent years, caving into pressure from conservative voices. But anyway, enough of that, enough of the soapbox. But back to the album, back to the music. So it starts off with a track called Ripples in the Ether. And this is all about, the whole sort of idea of founding a national broadcaster in the UK. So we get quotes from John Reith and others on this track. And then we go into the third track here is called An Unusual Man, and that's a track all about John Reith himself. Then probably my favourite track, and this is on side 2. It's a double album, by the way. It's called The Cello Sings in Daventry, and this is the only track that actually has singing on it, and it's the folk singer Seth Lakeman singing. Now, the reference to Daventry is that at the time, Daventry was chosen as the location for the BBC's most powerful transmitter. So there you go. That's a little bit of history there. And as I say, all the tracks are absolutely brilliant. Then there's probably my favourite track, and it's called The Microphone, and then in brackets, The Fleet is Lit Up. Now, this, again, it contains a few quotes, and there was an observation by George Bernard Shaw that the microphone actually meant that politicians couldn't really hide their true feelings. I'm not sure whether that's actually true or not, but he felt that at a public meeting they could lie to you as much as they like, but in front of the microphone it was much more difficult. And it also, this track, it contains a reprise of a track from their first album and that track was called Lit Up, and it has some absolutely brilliant samples from a reporter called Thomas Woodruff, and he was reporting on the some sort of big sort of jamboree clip that showed that the British fleet at its best, and I think they're all in Portsmouth, and he was broadcasting on this event. Unfortunately, he was very, very drunk at the time, so he just waffles on about things being lit up and the lights going on and off, and it's absolutely brilliant. But anyway, that's public service broadcasting and the new noise. Right, so now it's time for a bit of punk, and it's this album, and just falling down there, and it's Be Your Own Pet. Again, I showed this one very briefly as part of a contest recently. The album's called Mummy, and it's the first album for 13 years from Be Your Own Pet. It's a third album, so it's the first since 2008, so that's 15 years, isn't it? They're a garage punk noise pop band from Nashville, Tennessee, and the members are Jamina Pearl on vocals, James Steen on guitar, Nathan Vasquez, and he's on bass, and John Eathley on drums. And Jamina Pearl's partner just happens to be Ben Swank, and he is a co-owner of Third Man Records along with Jack White. And he was the one that persuaded the band to get back together again. So what happened is that again, Jack White was doing his tour of the USA in 2022. It's called the Supply Chain Issues Tour, and Be Your Own Pet were the opening act at some of the gigs sort of on that tour. And after that was all over, it was back to Nashville, back to the studio to record this album. And it's an absolutely ferociously energetic album. It's brilliant. And the hype sticker on here sort of says everything really. It says an album packed with riot girl politics, MILF anthems, and the rejection of adulthood inertia. And there have been 4 singles taken from this album already. They're called Hand Grenade, Worship the Whip, Great Time, and Big Trouble. And other tracks on here are a track called Rubberist, which is all about fetish, and Never Again, Pleasure Seeker, Teenage Heaven, Erotomania. It's an absolutely brilliant punk album. So, if you've been waiting for a new album by Be Your Own Pet, or you're just into great sort of garage punk, then I'd recommend this album. And it's on Living Dead's green vinyl. So there you go. That's the colour of the Living Dead. And that's Be Your Own Pet and Mummy. Now then, I'm going to show 2 albums from the same band here, and this is a story of a young lad growing up on the northern beaches of Sydney. His name was Ben Portnoy, and when he was still at school, not even a teenager, he apparently used to sneak into a venue called Manly Fishers in Sydney, and watch sort of great bands, and the bands that he was influenced by in particular were Radio Birdman and Midnight Oil, both bands which I think Ben Rankins rather likes. So they're sort of described as a psychotic skate punk, or sometimes a pub thrash band. But there you go. They're COFFIN, Children of Finland Fighting in Norway, and I think they look very much like Motorhead. So, it's an absolutely brilliant album. I mean, whatever the genre is, it's punky. It's a bit heavy rock. It's a bit bluesy rock in places, but it's absolutely lovely. This is their first on label studio album from 2020, and it got a re-release in the UK, and I've not heard of them before, so I picked this up and I was really pleased. And they had their latest album come out last week, and that's equally good, and I'll show you that in a minute. Anyway, as with all good Australian albums, Mikey Young is involved, and he mastered this album. And these guys, they're on the right side of politics. I'm sure they are. And there's a little note here, and it says, this record was made on Gadigal land. The Gadigal clan of the Eora Nation are the traditional owners of that land, and we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Sovereignty never ceded. So, there's an awful lot of politics around First Nation Aboriginal rights at the moment, and I think that the Indigenous population have been treated quite badly for long enough, and these guys will say are on the right side of the argument. I'll show you the label. there we go. Children of Finland Fighting in Norway. That's the B-side. And it's there's a back there's a track list. So the opening track on this is absolutely brilliant. It's called Fast Love, and I just can't get it out of my head at the moment. I just love it. It's sort of really sort of rocking, brilliant stuff. And then what else? There's People and Their Stories. I really love that. And then there's Ransack Blues, which is a very sort of bluesy sort of hard rock sort of anthem, really. And then you go into Cecilia on that starts sort of side 2, and that's another great track. And then Headland, Playing Dead. They're all absolutely brilliant tracks. So, you know, I'm glad that I discovered these lads, and there you go. So this is their latest album. There you go. It's called Australia Stops. Now they all are jumping off the front of a boat. There's you know, with the lyrics, and there's sort of one of them diving in there with people looking suitably shocked in the background. So again, you know, Mikey Young always gets a mention, doesn't he, in these? He didn't master this one. This was mastered by somebody called Matthew Barnhart, sorry, but he mixed the album, so mixed by Mikey Young. So as I say, that's always just about a guarantee of quality from any Australian album. So this is quite a political album. You know, it's really it's an observation of Australian society and culture and politics, and it's about government action, or rather, sort of government inaction on social issues in particular. But it's also, I think, you know, very much a celebration of Australia and its people. And my favourite tracks on here. Opening tracks always seem to do it for me. Give Me a Bite. That's a great one. Beasts, that closes side 1. That's brilliant. The title track, Australia Stops, and then Nightbreaker. That's probably my favourite track of all. So there you go. That's Children of Finland Fighting in Norway, and 2 albums from Australia. So that's all I've got to show. So thank you very much for watching. This has gone on far too long. So I'll say bye.